Welcome back. This is Ways to Love Your Money, and I have a wonderful guest here today, Reagan Shallal, and I really want to hear what his story is all about, and I want you to hear about it too. So Reagan, with that said, I would love for you to share everybody what your story is, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good, good. So tell me a little bit about your humble beginnings, you know, when you kind of started out.
I started out, working really young, at a young age, in my family's store. We had a little convenience store in the backcountry, and I started working there when I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
So every day, basically after school, I would just work in the store till we closed at 9 o'clock, and all the other kids would be out playing, and my dad was
Making you work.
making us work. So that's how it all started. So
you told me a little bit of a story that when you were driving in the car with your dad, and you drove by something that it really, you had a dream, you had a vision that kind of came to you.
Yeah, the first businesses, the first gas stations, I'm in the fuel business now, as you know, I own a bunch of gas stations, but the first ones I bought when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, we used to pass by them on our way to Imperial County, and I used to see these sites out in Hucumba, which were my first gas stations, and I'd always say to myself, but I never told anybody, I would buy those one day, because I would see a vision at such a young age. So I'd always keep that to myself, but I always wanted to buy them. And then, eventually one thing led to another, and 20 years later or so, I ended up buying those, which I still own today.
Yes.
And from there, I took it to, this, little empire I've built now of sites in 3 different states. So.
Well, and I want you to elaborate on that a little bit more, but because not everyone in the audience knows exactly what you do, but I know you have Rayco Fuel, and you have several other companies as well.
Yeah.
So I know that has just built this big vision for you and what you really want to accomplish, and I know you're out there and you're doing more purchases of more gas stations, more businesses, but you've also partnered with some wonderful people too, and just basically your life experience with it, and really how you've learned how to kind of respect the business and everything that makes you kind of tick with the business.
Yeah, I've partnered up since I started on my own years ago with many really good people who understood what I was doing, who trusted me into taking it to the next level and let me guide the way. And that's why those people are very successful now too. I didn't start in the fuel business. The first company I started was an internet jukebox company, actually. I had no money. I borrowed money from a friend of mine. His name was Gary Feldman, really nice guy. He's actually a client of yours, and I've known him for 20 years or so. I laid out the plan. He trusted me. He loaned me money to start, and I started it with a business partner back then. And that business was doing well, and then I started another company within a company, which was actually an ATM company, and eventually the opportunity came up to buy those gas stations I always wanted when I was a kid. So I ended up selling those businesses and buying the first 2 gas stations out in Hucumba, California on my own. And I saw a vision from there of, what people were looking for when they travel, what families wanted. I found a niche of what I can do. So then I started looking for more sites similar to Hucumba, and I started growing from there. And now I'm at a point, I buy really not even to make more money, because I've really made enough. I've done well there. Now I buy, honestly, based on, tax mitigation issues. I try to save where I can by purchasing more. And, the saying of the rich get richer is probably one of the truest sayings out there. Our system is designed for whoever's making money, whoever's paying their taxes. In order for them to save on those taxes, you gotta grow. And you have to tax plan, which is where I came to see you, actually, because I got tired of paying the taxes that I pay, and, it can't obviously eliminate paying taxes, but I could save a lot of money. And as time goes by, it amounts to millions of dollars of savings as time goes by.
Sure.
So that's, what happens as you just start getting bigger and bigger.
Sure. Well, and a tax mitigation problem is a problem for everyone. You know,
Yeah.
I've never met anyone that likes to pay taxes or more than they have to. Yeah. But for the most part, it's really about how can you start to put some money away for yourself. You know,
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
key.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big mistake people make. They don't put money away. They don't. Unfortunately, the general population doesn't understand finance. Great example is, you know, I know people who they'll have $5,000 in their checking account. They feel secure that they have that. They owe $3,000 of credit cards, and they don't pay the credit card off. They keep the $5,000 in their account because they feel secure. Well, I tell them, I say, listen, I think you should take some advice from me. I think I know what I'm talking about. Pay off your credit card, put $2,000 in your checking account, and then you're not wasting that interest on, you know, that interest expense. You can't write that off.
Well, we talk about that all the time, about financial institutions, banks, and the government taking more than they should from you.
Yeah.
And if you can start to identify those pieces and start to save them for yourself, you're going to be that much more successful.
That's right. And it allows you to compound your worth at a faster rate instead of having money being wasted on things that aren't even a tax write-off. Credit card debt is not a tax write-off. There's a lot of things that aren't a tax write-off where, you know, people should eliminate those.
So would you say you have a strong sense of respect for money and for everything that you've built?
You know, believe it or not, when I was younger, I used to say I don't respect money at all, but actually I respect it very much now because I understand the power of it and what you can do with it. And a lot of people love to say, oh, it's not all about money. Oh, you're all about money. No, it's not. Because when you have money, you can do a lot with it and help a lot of others. Just like I brought a lot of other people in the same business that I'm in now. We're all extremely happy. We're all doing very well financially. We hang out. Everybody's happy. You know? So I was able to teach these good people the niche, and now we have grown it bigger and bigger.
So in the beginning, you had a mentor that helped you, and now you're becoming a mentor to help others.
Yeah, I think everybody has a mentor. I mean, I have a good buddy of mine, Ruby, which you know I'm talking about. I wanted his lifestyle, and a real, if you're not a money-driven person, don't even watch this show. I'll tell you right now. So if you want financial freedom, money has to be important. Okay, and I saw his lifestyle, and I said at a young age, that's the lifestyle I want. And money gives you freedom. You agree?
Agree.
It gives you freedom to do what you want. You wake up when you want, you go to bed when you want, and you basically do anything you want.
It takes a little while to get to that point.
It
for
takes
most people,
a little
though.
while, but if you have the drive, and if you can see the vision and take advice from people who are successful. A lot of people don't take the advice. You know, they just brush it off. And years pass by, and then they say, God, I wish I would have took that advice. But a lot of people don't.
So what pieces, what gems did you pull from when you were young that basically started to make you the businessman that you are today?
Well, hard work is one. Nothing comes easy. I tried the easy route. That didn't go too well. And so long hours in the beginning, a lot of dedication, and being very calculated on what you spend, what you're doing, what income is coming in, and continue to grow monthly. It was very important to me to calculate to the penny of how much money I was making a month. When I started very small, I was a $9 an hour guy working for somebody. Then when I started my first company, you know, it was very slowly, but every month, more and more money. I would make sure I made more money every month. And eventually, it gets to a point to where no matter how much you're laying out in whatever business you're in or whatever you're doing, the income well outweighs the money going out, and your wealth starts to compile. I believe wealth compiles at every 7 years, your net worth. Is that correct?
Between 7 and 10 years.
7 and 10 years. And that's probably the average.
Something we call an exponential curve. So that exponential curve, it starts out a little bit smaller. You know, you're just starting to accumulate, and then you kind of have this little takeoff phase. You know, the next 10 years, and then basically you're you know, through the roof on the rocket ship.
You are
for
right.
The last 10.
Making your first million is the hardest. Going from 1 to 5 was a lot easier than going from 0 to 1 million. And then, you know, from 10 million on up, it gets a lot easier. It gets easier the wealthier you become. It really does. You know, it's hard to make $1 million, but then it's super easy to make $5 million after that.
Isn't that something? Because there's a lot of listeners that are probably thinking, how do you do that? How do you do it? And I mean, today it's all about ways to love your money, but it's also ways to love and respect your money and how to grow it.
Yeah.
And so you have big responsibilities too, because you have so many employees. You have
correct,
multiple different businesses, and you've built an empire. So it's again, you know, at the end of the day, I'm sure it's not that you're putting your head on your pillow at night thinking, oh, I have all this responsibility, but I'm sure you do.
You know, you're always thinking about it,
Sure.
but at the same time, as you grow, you put people in place who take those calls for you. I don't get very many calls, but I have great staff, excellent people who work for me, and only the high-level stuff will make it to me if it's an issue. Other than that, you get good people and you pay them well and treat them well, they'll grow with you.
I couldn't say it better myself.
You
know, having great support, having great advice, as you said before, and I think it's really key. It's to acknowledge that advice when you're given it, and then ultimately how you use it and how you produce it with other things that you're doing that are going to create successes in your life.
Yeah, and it's very important as you do grow, don't be greedy, share. Be good to those people. So what if you make $1 million a year and you pass out 200,000 of it and you get to 800? That's okay because they're going to help you grow faster. And a lot of people don't understand that.
So what are some of the ways that you give back? Do you do anything in your community? Do you do anything with charities? Do you do?
All the time.
Okay.
Actually, it seems like every time, every week, there's some type of donation to some organization. And that's important to do, especially if they're legitimate organizations, because you may not think you need them, but they're there for you when you do need them. You know, whether it's the local planning department or whatever it is, when you need to get things done as part of your business, those people will support you. So it is very important to support events, support certain schools and charity events in your area and stuff. That's very important too. And especially if they're 501c3, if they're write-offs, why not? Why give it to the government? I'd rather give it to an organization that needs it.
So do you feel like you're doing things now as a purpose-driven business, or do you feel that you're doing, you know, you have goals, dreams, and desires for your future? You know, the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. You know, I know you have some goals, but can you pinpoint them now because of the ideas that you've had where you're pinpointing to the penny, but at the same time you're pinpointing how you want your future to go? What's your future vision?
You know, my future vision is probably a little different than the majority. And that's because, you know, I'm not married, I don't have kids, so you start thinking, well, what are you going to do with all this money? Who are you going to leave it for? So it's not, you know, yes, I want a certain type of, which I already have, the freedom and all that, but there comes a point where, in my case, I'm not concerned about making more money. I'm happy with what I got. I just need to manage what I got and save where I can on taxes with, you know, people like you. And, but yeah, I mean, that's all I can say.
So
about
is it more
that.
about quality of life at this point?
Yeah, quality of life
and having the right
is,
people to help you get what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Quality of life is number one. If you don't have that, if you're not happy in your personal life, you're not going to be happy. Okay? So, but money helps you have that quality of life.
Yes.
And for those who are married or have kids, one of the biggest problems I see in marriages is financials, is money related.
Sure.
That's the biggest strain I see on families. I actually wanted to get married at a younger age, and then as I got older, I said, wait a second, no, I need to become very wealthy first, and then I'll worry about getting married, because I didn't want to have the burden of supporting a family and worrying about finances. So, and that's where I am now.
Well, maybe you're in a better place. You never
I'm in
know.
a better place now.
This is going to be broadcast to many different people. You might have some calls. I don't know. But tell me one little quick snippet about a fun fact about you, because these are things that I like to know about people. I know you have some hobbies.
Yeah. You know, one of my dreams was I always wanted to be a pilot, so I became a pilot when I was 20 years old. I started flying fixed-wing airplanes, and about 3 years ago, you know, I bought so many gas stations, and I'm in 3 states now where I bought my own helicopter. Wow. So I now, myself or business partners of mine, when we need to go places, we take the helicopter most of the time, and we can get to our sites a lot faster. I turn 4-hour drives, each way into 55-minute flights. And at the same time, it's a tax write-off. It's a tax savings. So my accountant's been a big help on tax mitigation for me and tax planning, along with the things I do with you. And but yeah, I love flying. That's a hobby. I love fast cars. I've always bought really nice, cool cars. So. And I'm one of those guys, kids can approach me. I let them sit in them, and I take them for rides. I don't have any issues with that.
Well, it's nice that you have that humble.
Yeah, it seems like I take more people up in my helicopter for fun than I actually use it for business. Every time there's a birthday, a friend of mine's kids having a birthday, I'm taking them up.
Well, Reagan, we're so glad that you came on the show and you're sharing your story. I think it's incredible about entrepreneurs today because they do have such a story. They're in business. They're talking about money. You can work for a company too, but you work for your company, which is great.
Yeah,
which is great. And thank you so much for sharing your story. We're so glad that you've been a part of it today.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much. We'd love for you to stay tuned for our next segment for Ways to Love Your Money, and we'll be right back.